Welcome to my podcast, Today's Dream, Tomorrow's Reality. My name is Vicki Poole, and I'm a master transformational coach, hypnotist, specializing in habit change. And this podcast is sponsored by the Enlightened Peach. And this podcast is all about embracing our mosaic life. And some of you may ask, what is a mosaic life anyway? It is recognizing that all the pieces of our life, the good, the bad, the indifferent, have all come together to make us who we are. Change any one thing and we are different. With that in mind, I invite you to embrace your perceived imperfections and celebrate who you are. This podcast is unedited and raw, just like life. I am your host, and today I have a special guest I'll introduce in just a moment. But I would love for you to do me a solid and leave a comment. Remember to like, subscribe, and share. So now let's get started. So this lovely lady in red right here is Kathi Burns, and I'm trying to move this over a little bit so I can see you better. And we don't know each other well, but we met in a speaking group that we were both in. And I will say she is doing a lot more with her speaking part of this group than I have so far. Yet we connected during that group, and it was like I don't know, it was just something there, right? It just felt good. And so she has agreed to come on my podcast, and we're going to do a Facebook swap. And she does this amazing stuff with organization that everybody needs. So I'm going to let her share a little bit about what she does, and then we'll kind of dive into her story. So go ahead, Kathi, take it away.
Okay, Vicki. Well, first off, I so appreciate being a part of your podcast. It's huge for me to be a guest on your show, and I love the work that you do. And I'm so uh, in resonance with the mosaic of our life and how every single little piece of it makes us unique. And as a professional organizer, that's what really brings me great joy, is working with individual clients. They're all different. We all have different needs and desires. We all have different parts that are broken and parts of it that are not. And as a professional organizer, it's all about discovering the things that make us tick, the things that are, because I do a lot of change, just like you do with your clients, like change management. And you want to create the systems that are going to stick. And that's based on who that person is, the background mosaic of their life, as you like to say. And that's going to help them kind of get solid with whatever the change is that they're trying to accomplish. So I appreciate you and your work a great deal.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate you too. So let's kind of back up a little bit and let's kind of talk about, how did you even get started? I mean, organization, everybody knows they need it, but when does anybody say, that's what I want to do as a profession, So how did you get to this place where you knew that's what you wanted to do?
Well, I'll give you a quick abbreviated message of that.
Okay.
I've had 9 careers. One of my careers, I was a licensed boat captain, where I moved yachts around and taught sailing in the Virgin, and,
Oh,
and
how
that was
exciting.
kind of what the start of it was, because I remember distinctly being in the Gulf Stream, thinking about my apartment back on Earth, right, and land, and saying nothing really mattered to me then, and I would. There's just a couple things in my apartment. Everything else was like, who cared?
Fluff.
So I get back to shore, and I would purge immediately in between sailing trips. I just purge, and then I'd be on my way again. That was step one. And then shortly after that, when I quit sailing for a living, I became a travel writer, and I lived out of a suitcase 42 weeks a year. Now, when you live out of a suitcase, again, you get a lot of perspective on what's important, what's not. What do you really need to be happy, joyous, and fulfilled? And I think those 2 experiences out of all my careers have really shaped how I became a professional organizer. Well, I had a year off to kind of reinvent myself. I'd been doing all these really amazing things, but I kept saying, I wonder what I should do when I grow up. What should I do when I grow up? Like I knew I wasn't really doing what I should be doing, like, my gift to the world, so to speak. And I think a lot of us have that same thing where it's like, what should I do when I grow up? What can I do to make a difference? Well, I met this woman who also had a year off, and she was on a healing journey. We were on the path for different reasons. But I went back to her house and I'm looking at her house. She's surrounded by stuff. And I'm like, oh, girl, there's no way you're going to heal your body with if you have all this stuff in your environment. We need to start purging. And so I just instinctively helped her. Right. And she goes, you know what? You're really good at this. And you know, people do this for a living. And I'm like, what? She goes, oh yeah, my girlfriend's been hiring an organizer for like a couple decades. You should talk to her. And so I had an interview with her with her girlfriend. I said, oh my gosh, this sounds like a blast. I can do this standing on my head asleep. I knew I had found my dharma at that point. And without my friend and without that year of the space of time to kind of reinvent, I wouldn't have come upon it.
Yeah.
So I started organizing, before, like right when Clean Sweep happened, way before Marie Kondo, maybe before all of that happened. So I'm kind of one of the old timers in the industry. But 19 years later, here I am, and I'm loving life.
Yeah, wonderful. Well, when I work with my clients, because I work on habit change and all of those things, and I tell them all the time that if you've got too much stuff in your environment, that's just a cluttered mind. You can't think in that space, and you certainly cannot create new habits because everything's all clustered there. And so in order to make room for new habits, you have to remove things starting in your environment, which helps starting it here. And before I became a health and life coach, I would have never thought, you got to get stuff out of your house to create habits. That sounds like a bunch of hooey. But as I as I learned all this stuff, it's true. And one of the things that I'll share with some of my clients, I'll say, well, if you were to look at your living room and decide you want a new sofa, would you go buy a sofa and bring it home and then tell the delivery people, just put it on top of the other one? You wouldn't. You would get rid of that one. And it's the same with our habits. And so I'm so excited for you to be talking in my Facebook group, the Make Lasting Change, because, it's something that they're really going to want to embrace as they're trying to make lasting change in their lives. And so I'm so really excited with what you do so that we can share this and help them make a lasting change. So let me ask you a question. So if someone has like, for instance, I had one person that I was working with and I was trying to talk to her about her clutter. And it was like, she said, well, it's not that bad, but I've got boxes here and boxes here and boxes here and boxes here. And I'm thinking, oh, and so I told her to just like set a timer for 15 minutes and start. So if you were to have somebody that like here that's listening now or in my Facebook group that might be in that place where they've just got so much clutter that they've got clutter from other people, they've got their own clutter, and then they kind of get emotionally attached to all these things. And so they got stuff. So what would you tell them would be the first step for them to start getting out of that position?
Yeah. It's a good question, and one that I'm asked all the time, especially in interviews, is I always say start small. Start with something that you can control, that you don't have a lot of emotional charge around it. Probably not the boxes that are sitting there, because a box represents something that's undone, unresolved, and it just opens up a can of worms. It's in a box for a reason. So you don't really want to start there. I always say start with your sock drawer. The reason I like a sock drawer, most of us, although out of 20 years, I've had one person that's totally invested in her socks. Emotionally. But usually we don't have a lot of emotional energy around socks,
Okay.
right? So you can either, get rid of the loosies, get rid of the ones that don't fit, get rid of the ones that are tattered, don't hold, and then put the pairs together and then put them back. And the reason that I like the sock drawer, generally it's a confined amount of space, right? So hopefully a sock drawer, or at the most 2 sock drawers, right? You determine how many socks is it enough? Is it 1 drawer or 2 drawers? So you kind of have that container of how much you agree with yourself on how much is enough. dump it all out on the floor, get rid of the loosies, make the patterns, set them up, and then put them all back in. And that will make you experience a win. And when you have a win, you get that serotonin, push, and then you're like, okay, I mastered that. I can move on to the next thing.
Mhm.
So start small. Don't start with the junk drawer. That's like the worst thing of all. It's
I
totally
was thinking when you first started, I thought, yeah, I've never been in a house that doesn't have a junk drawer. That's just, I have more than one. I have two junk drawers,
Yeah, the junk drawer is the biggest can of worms because it's so random. And so is the hall closet. It's so random. Like, don't even go there. But socks are good. Undies are good. Your bra collection's good. Start somewhere where you don't really have a lot of charge around it. And it's kind of more likely than not like with like to begin with,
Mhm.
hopefully. So that'll give you a win, and that'll give you the umph to get going and do something a little bit more difficult,
Yeah,
maybe
yeah,
pots and pan collection, right? Or something like that.
yeah. Well, one of the things that just popped into my mind as you were talking about that, and it may be absolutely nothing to do with it, I have no idea. But all of a sudden I was thinking of how things don't happen suddenly, when it comes to we've got all this clutter and everything. It's just like it develops over time, right? With what our mindset is and all the stuff and all the feels. And so what popped into my head was that how do people go from and you may not have the answer to this, I don't know, that they need to declutter their space a little bit, they've got too many boxes or they've got that, to being in the hoarder situation, because that's a big mindset thing. It's a lot more about the mindset than it is the stuff. So is that something that you see when if you don't take care of this now, you're headed to that path?
I don't think so. My girlfriend Dorothy is the producer of the Hoarder Show, and
Okay.
hoarding is a disease.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so it's not something that you necessarily grow into. It's a disease that has to be managed by multiple people, multiple agencies, multiple persons to have that, resolved. And actually, there's really no true resolution for hoarding. And I don't work with hoarders. It is a special, I'm a board certified professional organizer, but I've never got my certification in hoarding. There are a lot of professional organizers out there who are the ex-social workers, nurses, and that one, that they go ahead and they get that certification so that they can work alongside with hoarding. But I don't think that it's something you grow into. I think it's something that might be already there that then might not manifest until they're later, but then they get that trigger experience that will then show up as
Okay.
hoarding. Um, a
Well, because
pile.
I know a lot of times well, my experience with the people that I've met that could be considered hoarders, they're a little bit older, and it's almost like like one person in particular that I can think in my mind, I could see that their house was very cluttered. But over time, it got to the point where there was a path that you walked through. And, and not only was it cluttered, it was dirty. And it was like, oh my gosh, how does somebody live like this? And, but it wasn't always that way. That's why I was thinking maybe it was something that you kind of developed.
I think it manifests itself gradually. I think it might always have been there. I don't know. Again, it's not my expertise.
Yeah.
I'm not a psychologist or psychiatrist, but typically that's what is necessary for people who are hoarders, as well as, city codes and professional organizers and all sorts of different, it's a group combined effort. But to set that aside, I think what happens is that, well, first off, what I was going to say earlier is that a pile represents one of three things. It's indecision, procrastination, or avoidance. Now, once you do that over and over and over again, then you get more and more and more piles, and then it's not resolved. And yeah, you're talking to someone who can barely walk through, that's hoarding on a scale of 4 or 5, and that's someone that definitely needs some help. But I don't, I have one client right now that, she was diagnosed as a hoarder, and I'm like, I have to disagree. You're not a hoarder, you're a collector. And
Mm,
your life is not out of control. You love beautiful things.
right.
And a little bit different. I consider her not a hoarder. I think she wants to claim that. I don't know why that someone put that on her. I really don't think that's the case. She's brilliant. I mean, there's a lot of hoarders who are brilliant and smart because it
Right.
is a disease. But what happens, especially as women, we inherit everybody's stuff. Like if you have a family of 3 boys and a girl, the girl is going to get all the stuff from the
Mm-hmm.
parents. There's always going to be the person that gets all the stuff. And if you don't have the ability to make discerning decisions and get it out of your life, you're just going to be stuck with it. So oftentimes I think people that are perceived hoarders, they've just been dumped on and dumped on and dumped on, and they've not been able to make rational decisions or have help making a rational decision of what to get go of, what to keep, where should it go. They also, people get stuck in perfectionism. And I think that's the case with a few of my clients that it has to go to the perfect place. It has to be done the perfect way. It has to be given to the perfect person. And
Mm-hmm.
so the perfectionism thing can make you stuck as well.
Yeah, and I will say, there's someone that I know that they have a hard time giving things to people because they don't think they will care for it in the same way that they cared for it. And I tried to say, well, once you give this to them, it's theirs to do with whatever they want. You can't say, well, you have to treat it this way. And so I think, that's maybe some people get emotionally attached to things if they've had them for a long time or whatever, and they want to gift it to someone, and then they're fearful that they're not going to honor it in the way that they want them to honor it.
Yeah, and therefore it's not a gift.
Yeah,
It's a
yeah,
So, if it's a true gift, you give your gift out into the world and you don't expect anything to come back or anything to happen specifically with it. You're giving that gift. And
right.
I talk to a lot of people about letting go, learning how to let go with ease, grace, and joy, realizing that it's going to go to the perfect person at the perfect time, even if it's just you're giving stuff to Goodwill, right? I
Yeah,
always just bless it, move it on its way, bless that who's ever going to get it is exactly who needs it.
yeah,
And
yeah.
that's the easiest way to let go, in my opinion, is to just bless it and move it forward.
Yeah. Well, I can say I've been in this house that I'm in right now for 2.5 years, I guess it is. And I had sold my house. And when I sold it, I purged a lot of stuff because I had to put it up for sale and all that stuff. But since I've been here, I've probably accumulated a lot of the same kind of stuff, little knickknacks and things, little pieces of furniture here and there. And, so I think, ah, the idea of moving from this place is like, oh, that's so daunting because I've collected more stuff. And,
Mhm.
who is it? Oh, what is the comedian's name?
Oh, oh yeah. Oh my God. Not Charlie. Yeah, he's hilarious. The whole thing about your house and your stuff. Does your stuff?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Why
Yeah,
can I
I
not
love
think of
that.
his name?
I can see his face.
I can too.
Oh my
George
God.
Carlin.
George Carlin.
That's it.
Yeah,
Because I
his
kept saying
stuff.
George Burns. That's not right. That's not right.
His stuff. I love that skit.
Yeah.
That's like, so he needs to have a place to store his place to store his place.
Yeah. And that's what we tend to do. We get a bigger house to take our stuff. And when you think about it, years ago, there might have been one or two little places that were like the storage spots where you could, store some of your extra stuff while you were doing something. But now it's like they're little malls almost with the people storing their stuff, which is mind-boggling when you think about it.
Yeah, we used to not have closets. Now we have giant
Yeah.
closets. And so we have a lot more space. I have some of my clients hire me and they're like, I have too much space. I'm freaking out. I don't know what to do with it. I'm like, keep it empty. You don't have
Yeah.
to pull it up. And some of my clients, after they go through the purge, they're like, oh my God, now what am I going to do? One of my clients, I remember specifically, I love this man who's now a very dear friend. We cleared out his apartment. He was a bachelor. And he emails me one day and says, this is before we were real dear friends. He goes, I don't know what to do with all my time. I have too much time. I don't have anything that I have to take care of now. Like it's all taken care of, Kath. What am I going to do? And I'm like, go out and have a date. Go
Yeah.
out and find a girl.
Go have
And
fun.
To this day, I still remember that. He was like in freaking because he had so much time. Because, when you have less stuff, you have less positions to take care of, you have more time.
Yeah.
And it's easier to clean. You're quick to clean. You can have a cleaning person come in, or you can clean it yourself, lickety split, right? So if everything has a home with the yard around it, your life is in control, and then you have all this time. And
Yeah.
so he's the first person who ever freaked out about too much time. A lot of people freak out about too much space or that kind of thing. But yeah, he was like, what am I supposed to do with my time?
Yeah. Well, there's a client of mine that she hired somebody to help her declutter her home, right? And they worked with her for quite a long time. They got it decluttered, so pretty much, and where she had just a few little things in her garage. And then she quit working with the woman. And it seemed like it didn't take hardly any time. And she was putting things back and she was doing. So do you find that when you work with someone that they have to do like a refresher later, or is it something that once they've done it, it feels done?
Well, it depends on the organizer. My code of ethics requires that I have a transference of skills to my client. So if I don't transfer those skills where they can learn how to maintain and sustain the systems that have been built, I've kind of fallen short on my job. So I'm not quite sure who this person was that she worked with or the background or anything.
Yeah,
Um,
I don't either.
but I really don't know, but you do have to letting go's a muscle. First off, I always say, my clients are like this, I'm like, oh, I can't let that. And then, and then they're like, oh, okay. And then the next time I come, they're like, get rid of it. I don't want it anymore. Right. So they become their letting go muscles have gone from atrophy to power. And once they realize how good it feels to have space, to have extra space in their life, space and time, space and thought, space and clarity, space and just moving around, then they get it. And then they don't ever want to go back.
Yeah.
So that's typically what I experience with my clients. That's what happens with them. I have to give them that skill set of being masterful at letting go, of knowing that everything that they bring into their life is going to require energy from them. They're much more discerning about what they bring into their life after they go through the process of letting go.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so when you were really young, were you organized?
You know what? I don't think I was, but this is interesting. My father was total organized. He did systems on systems on systems. He
Was he
knew he
military?
books. I'm sorry?
Was he military?
No, he was a
No?
minister. But he
Oh,
loved, actually, he was ex-Coast Guard, but I don't think that's where he learned it. He just loved to do systems. It was his creative artistic endeavor. And so, of course, what we dislike most about our parents is what we become. But I didn't really think I was organized, but I met a childhood friend about 10 years ago. And she goes, you know what I remember most about you, Kath? I'm like, what? She goes, you had a ring organizer. I'm like, really? She goes, yeah, I thought it was the weirdest thing. You had this little dish that organized your rings, and I will never forget that. And I'm like, okay, so maybe I was organized back then. I just didn't really understand what that meant.
yeah. Yeah. Well, I don't, maybe I was pretty organized too then, because I had one of those and I still have one today. My rings go into a little dish at night with my earrings and my rings and everything go in a certain space. But
Very good.
when I was a kid, what was interesting was I had a room of my own. And if I came home and went in my room, I could tell if somebody had picked up something and moved it back because
Mhm.
it was not exactly where I left it. And
Ah,
I could tell. And so it was like one of the things where I didn't want people coming in my room and touching my stuff because I didn't want it to be rearranged or moved because it felt good exactly where I had it. And I did that a little bit in the rest of the house, but I was in the caregiver for my younger brother and sister while my parents were working and everything. And so I don't know, I'm a Virgo too, so that might
yeah.
be a little bit of it. Are you a Virgo as well?
I'm Gemini with Virgo moon.
Okay, yeah. Something about them Virgos, they can.
Yeah.
And I will say that one of my biggest things is I sometimes hold people to a standard that they cannot meet. And so that was one of the things that I work on.
Yeah. We all have something, girl.
Yeah.
All got
I know.
you and me knows, Vicky, and everybody else listening, you
That's
know?
right. That's right. So I'm just, I'm curious with your, what took you to the seven C's kind of thing? What brought you to, you know, because I know you said you did a whole bunch of different things, and those were the two things that you talked about. So what did you do before that? Well, how did that come about? Because, I never would have ever thought to do anything like that. So how did that come up for you?
Well, I it, wow. Okay, so I was a concert violinist, and in college, I decided I didn't want to be that anymore, so I became an audio engineer. So
Okay.
I was in the recording industry back in P-Funk era, so I love funk, way back when, and I lived in Cincinnati, Ohio, and I got this little bug about sailing, and to sail, I had to drive 45 minutes to this lake. So I would drive back and forth to this lake to sail, and eventually I got a job, my only job working corporate. I got a job working for a corporation, and I got transferred, and I said, I really want to sail, right? So I got a job and I got transferred to Tampa, the Tampa, Florida area. And I'm not a very good corporate employee. I lasted a year, and meanwhile, I was sailing because I was like, oh my God, I'm in my Mecca. I've got the Tampa Bay, I've got the Gulf of Mexico. So I was sailing a lot. I became a licensed captain, and
Is that a hard thing? I would imagine it is.
it's a lot of hours. It's a lot. You have to have a lot of hours, and you have to take a big exam. You have to know rules of the road and all that good stuff. And so I gave notice to my corporation for 2 weeks, right? And they said, you can quit tomorrow. I'm like, yeah. And I sailed away the next week. And
Oh,
I never
wow.
so I got a job delivering this yacht for a guy who didn't know how to sail but bought a yacht and wanted to sail away. So that's what started all that. But I basically, I fell in love with sailing. I just fell in love with sailing. I'm not a big motorboater girl. Give me some wind, give me some sail. I'm happy. Don't turn on the motor if at all possible. That's kind of my gig.
Mm-hmm.
It's in for me. So yeah, that's how that happened. I had one little corporate job that got me to Florida, which enabled me to be able to sail full time.
Nice. Nice. And I like going on cruises, but I'm not really that keen on getting in a boat and going boating and that kind of thing. That's just never been a thing. I don't know why. And I had friends that they had boats and they would want to do that, and they would, let's go for the weekend. Yeah, that's just not for me. So it's just, I'm always intrigued with people having this diverse interest like you have, because that's just incredible to be doing the music, and because it seems almost like none of those things connect at
I know.
all. Yeah,
I
yeah.
it doesn't make any sense at all. But what I can tell you is when you're out to sea and there's no land in sight and all you see is stars or whatever, it's like it's huge. It's a huge, for me, mind-blowing experience of how insignificant stuff is and how insignificant actually I am in the scale of, the earth. And it just gives you a whole new perspective. It's very zen. For me, it was a very spiritual experience, which I think sailing for me is definite spiritual experience. So if one of my friends said, let's go away for the weekend, I'd be like, there,
Yeah. Well, see,
everything.
I love being at the water. Like, I love going to the beach. I love being in the mountains by a river. And if I have this thing where I'm wanting to kind of decompress and just relax, I always want to be near water. It's the sound, those things. Like, I'll have a fountain in my yard. I'll have any way that I can have the sound of water. And so I wonder, maybe I just never gave myself permission to get on the water just for fun and do that. Maybe I would have gotten this bug of all this water stuff. Who knows? Of course, I could still try.
As I was going to say, Vic, you still might. You just never know.
That's all right. That's all right. So I need to have a friend, another friend who has a boat.
Yeah. Just sail away for a few days.
Yeah,
Say
yeah,
yes. That's my challenge to you. If you ever have that happen, just say yes, and you'd be surprised on the perspective that you get. It's a
yeah.
completely different mindset, especially sailing, because it's all about the journey.
Hmm.
You're always going to be late. It's always going to take longer than you think. It's going to be slow. It's not like you can just, chug along and be somewhere at all. It's about the journey.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I can say that one of the things that I love is to get away from all the things, all the lights and it's really hard a lot of times to find a place that's not got all the lights filtering in from somewhere.
Yeah.
And so you really have to search to get to a place that when it's dark. So that's really intriguing to think about getting on the sailboat and going out because I used to go. I had my first husband and we would go camping sometimes. But the thing that drove me crazy about his camping was he wanted to have a radio there and playing music the whole time.
Oh,
And it's like, I thought we were coming out here to experience nature. But no, he wanted to have all of the sounds, all the noise, and everything. And so as soon as I got where I could have an experience where I went camping without that, I went camping without it. And it's so much better.
yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Go where there's no Wi-Fi. Go where I mean, that's the thing about being out to sea, there's no, if you're really out to sea, there's no cell phone, there's no Wi-Fi. You don't have any of those distractions.
Yeah. Very cool. But the thought of being without my phone, it's like, I left my phone at home one day and it was like I was going somewhere with my sister and she got here earlier than I had thought. I grabbed my bag and I ran out the door and everything. And a little ways down the road, I realized I didn't grab my phone. And I thought, oh my gosh, my daughter's at work. She's not going to know where I'm at. And I couldn't handle it. So I had my sister, I said, can you text Haley and at least tell her where I'm at so she won't be worried and everything? It was like, when I was a kid, you left the house, nobody knew where the hell you were or anything. You had to call when you got where you were going or something. But it's so mind-boggling to realize how tethered we can become to those things. Like I go walking now, I still take my phone with me, but I've got where I won't put my earbuds in all the time. I will just listen to nature, but I'll have my phone primarily so that if I have this epiphany that comes to me, I pick my phone up and I'll ask, who to make a note of it. I'm not going to say it because my phone's sitting right over here and she'll answer me. Um, but I will go ahead and make a note of it so I remember when I get back. But it feels good a lot of times to just realize that, you've got that in your pocket, but you're not utilizing it and you can just pay attention to what's going on around you. And I think maybe that's one of the things that decluttering does too, is it kind of quiets the noise,
Big
right?
time.
Yeah.
Because your possessions will silently scream at you.
Yeah.
Especially piles or boxes of things, they silently scream at you of things left undone. And then you feel a lot of times you feel like you go into guilt. No, I can't. In fact, I had a client who she moved on to into a beautiful home on a golf course so that she could play golf, but she never played golf. She called me 2 years after she moved in and said, I still haven't played a round of golf because I have too much to do. I have too many projects that are undone. I'm not settled in and I feel really guilty to go out and play golf. So can you please help me get settled so that I can actually have some fun?
Oh,
And
wow.
sure enough, I mean, but that's what happens to a lot of people. It happens to actually think about it. It probably has happened to all of us at one point. We're like, no, we can't go have some fun because we really have to do this project that we've been putting off forever. We have to do this thing that's been sitting there undone for so long that we go into guilt, and then we say no, we cut ourselves off from having fun and having experiences, and we don't have free time either, because all the free time that we think we have goes into the energetics of having to deal with the stuff that we haven't dealt with. So
Right.
it's mental clutter, then it becomes physical clutter, and then it becomes inability to do self clutter. It's just a vicious cycle,
Yeah.
right?
Well, that may be why, like, when I pack up and I move to a new place, I am hell bent on everything has to be put up as quickly as possible. I go on a trip and I come back with my suitcase. I have to, before I go to bed and do anything, I have to put the laundry away, put the stuff away, close up the suitcase and put it up. I can't, it's like it screams at me if I haven't done it, you know? And I don't like leaving things undone. Not to say that I don't, sometimes I do. But you know, that's one of the things about me. It's like 2 days after I'm in a house, everything's put away. You know, boxes gone, everything, just because I can't handle all the actual stuff. But it's interesting right now. I'm thinking, you know, one of the things that I've started doing for myself, because I would make a list of all the things I needed to do for the day, right? And sometimes it was quite long. And then when I didn't get everything completed, I think, oh, I got to move that on to the next day and I got to do all these things. So now I've got where I only allow myself to put a maximum of 5 things on that list. And then if I don't get them done, I evaluate how important is that. If it's important enough, then I'll move it to the next day. But otherwise, I just let it go. And it's been a long time to get to that place, you know, because I used to, like I said, I would make a list a mile long and then I would mark off a few things and then I would start it on another list. And it just got to where it was so constricting, you know, I felt like I never got finished. And
Well, yeah,
yeah,
I mean, 41% of our to-do lists never get done.
yeah.
And you're using an abridged version of the Ivy Lee method, which
Oh,
is my favorite method of all for to-do lists, where you have 5 things each day. You number them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You only do 1, 2, and 3. And if you get done with 4, that's great. If you don't, 4 and 5 go on to the next day's 1, 2 list. So you're
okay.
doing very much what I always recommend, because to-do lists will never get done. 41% will never get done. So why have this long, some of my clients have like 5 lists in different places on different parts. And then, wow, then they don't even know what to-dos are to done.
To
Right.
done, to be done.
Yeah. So you need to turn your to-do list into a to-do list. And you can
Yeah,
only do that if you have a limited amount of things, like you intentionally and are already doing, Vicky. You're like right on target with what works best, in my opinion.
yeah, yeah. Well, cool. Oh, I didn't
Hey, plus,
know that. All right. So, what do you feel is the greatest gift that you've received from all this work that you've done with working with people with this decluttering and their energy and all that?
wow, my greatest joy is watching the shift and watching the client get what they want to get at the end of it. Because when I start with a client, I have them set their intention. You know, what are we doing this for? What are you trying to create? Maybe they're trying to get the guy, they're trying to buy a house, they're trying to move, they're trying to get a job promotion. What are they trying to get from this? Because when you add space to your life, you're able to bring into fruition your big hopes and dreams. So my biggest juice is watching people get what they wanted all along. I've seen people get the guy. I've seen them get the house. I've seen them get the promotion. I've seen one of my scientists went from a staff from 7 to 70 in a year and didn't even bother to tell me. It just came out of her mouth sideways one day. I'm like, wait a minute, what? So, you know, watching these things happen as they learn how to let go and gain control of their life. See, that's the whole point. If you know how to let go, you're in control and you can create and manifest what you want. So you have to have the space to be able to do that. And that's my greatest gift, is just watching these things happen right before my eyes. And it still blows me away that
Mm-hmm.
get there. And I'm like, holy moly, you found one of my clients disappeared. She really wanted to manifest a man. And we cleared out. She didn't have any room in her bedroom closets. She didn't have any room in anything. I'm like, how's a guy going to fit into your life now? Like, I don't get it. Speaking of closet, she had, like, you know, the 3-door closet. She had a 6-door sliding door closet in her bedroom. It was full, right? I'm
Yeah.
like, how's someone going to fit in your life right now with where you're at? So cleared and cleared and cleared. And then I lost track of her. And then we found each other, or she found me. Something happened 3 years later. She had moved from San Diego to Colorado because she met a man and she's getting married.
Oh,
I'm like,
wow. Nice.
it
Yeah.
works every time if the intention is pure and the focus is there, and they really release enough to allow the stuff to come into their life that they really want. And that's the gem for me, is
Yeah.
watching that happen. It's like,
Yeah.
wow, still
Well,
blows.
I imagine so, because like I have, like, if when I'm working with a client and that I do the similar thing, what is our intention? What is it that you wanting out of this time that we work together? I'll even go so far as to say, if you could get to the 6 months or a year from now and you can look back and say, hiring her and us working together was the best thing that ever happened to me, because what is that answer? Because sometimes it's like they just give you these little superficial answers, or at least that's my experience. And so that really helps them to get clarity. And then to be able to take them just a little distance and they've already reached that milestone that they thought they were going to do in a year. And it's like, oh, it just makes your heart sing, it makes you happy. And so to me, the more condensed the time comes to get them from point A to point Z, that's even better, right?
Exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
nothing better than watching clients bloom and blossom, right? And get what they want. You
Yeah.
know, to get what they want is the thing. And, we all want what we want because we think it'll make us happy. And so if you really pinpoint, and I agree too, Vicky, sometimes, you don't really know what you want. You just know really it comes down to freedom, right? Freedom.
Hmm.
We just want to be free, whether it's financial freedom, monetary, whatever kind of freedom it is. We want to be free to be who we are. And from my working perspective, the more stuff you have weighing you down, the less freedom you have.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
we all want freedom.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, as I'm sitting here, I'm looking around my office and, I really need to declutter this office.
Hey, something happens when you talk to people like me, right?
I
You get a little,
know, I know, I know. And it's funny because some of the stuff that I've got in here, I even looked the other day and I thought, why do I have DVDs of these courses that I took? I'm
do you
never
have
going to
a
get
DVD
those
player?
courses out, huh?
Do you even have a DVD player? That's a
I do,
question.
I do. I have a DVD player because we have DVDs that we've had for a long time, and we'll pull them out and we'll still watch them, so that not everything's digital. For one thing, our internet went down one time. I don't even remember what happened, but we didn't have cable, we didn't have internet. And so we were watching these DVDs on the TV, and it was like, yes, we're okay.
That's cool.
Yeah, but I will say, as I'm looking, I've got quite a few of them over there from old courses that I've taken and everything. And to be honest with you, it's been so long since I even looked at them. They're probably obsolete, the things that they're telling you to do. So that will be going to Goodwill tomorrow.
Job. Good job.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm so excited that you were able to come on here with me and share your story. And I kind of feel like there's still some story under there we haven't uncovered, and I don't know what it is, but it's like I like getting in the deep part of things. And so if you were to just for a moment be extra vulnerable and not so polished and not so on top of things, what would be one vulnerable thing that you could share that might help people to see how you have come so far and able to help them in such a profound way? Is there anything that you can think of?
Well, I love that you think I'm polished and all that, but I'm not. But thank you for
Well,
that.
you come across like that, so I'll just
Oh,
tell you.
okay. Well, one thing is that's been driving me bonkers actually all year. So I started off January with a bang. I'm just like so busy. I didn't have time to really get my ducks in a row. And I had some double bookings on my calendar. My files were not rotated odd year, even year. Like I didn't do any of this until February, and it was just driving me insane. And actually, a lot of stuff was slipping through the cracks. So I guess the thing to say is that organizing is an ongoing process. Sad but true. You're never really organized. You're not ever completely organized. So for all of January, I was in disorganized hell. Actually, it was driving me bonkers. And only until, again, I took the time to stop, which is what you have to do. You have to stop, cease and desist, and say, enough's enough. I had been on the road all of January, always gone, not even here. Come home and I'm like, chaos. I had to stop, and I had to take a couple of days to just get my act together. But here's the thing too, is that once you're kind of organized, it takes less time to get back to what I call that zero spot, where everything is the yard around it. But I was in chaos for a while. So if you want vulnerability, January was awesome and sick all at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Feel better.
Well, well, thank you for sharing that, because then the rest of us don't feel so.
No, there's always, the thing is, Vicki, there's always something that needs organized. There's always something to be made a little bit better. And it is an ongoing thing. I mean, no one's perfect. And, I think perfection's overrated anyhow. When I wrote my first book, it took me 3.5 years because I wanted it to be perfect. And that was just stupid at the time. And in the last year of writing it, my mantra became perfection is overrated and simply not worth it. And I finally put the book out, because you can just get stuck in that. You can get stuck in the perfectionism syndrome. You can get stuck in the I am not enough syndrome. And really, as long as you're making some type of progress, you're progressing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's all you want. You want to progress, right?
Right.
And everything changes anyhow. So the question is, are you managing? Are you making the change, or is the change happening to you? Are you being proactive? Are you being reactive? All of January, I was in freaking reaction mode for sure. And now, thank God, February, I'm more proactive. But there's still this double book that I'm still trying to deal with, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
Well, it's interesting. Like this morning, I was sharing a story in my group, because I go in there. On Mondays, I do a live where I teach and we celebrate and everything. But then I've been going in there every day and doing this positive affirmation and positive journal prompt for everybody. And so, and it is like, it just lights me up. I just love doing it. And so this morning, one of the things that I was sharing was that, and I had heard a gentleman talking about it. And so it was definitely on top of my mind, but things change all the time, and we can either change and embrace the change as it's a learning experience, it's all these things that are taking us where we want to go, or we can resist change. And then in resisting change, it's like things fall into disarray. And so one of the things this gentleman was saying was that, a house that is cared for can last forever. But a house that's kind of left to its own, where nobody's taking care of it, nobody's doing the lawn, nobody's doing anything to it, it will very quickly just fall apart. So we can either have a life that's falling apart from not being paid attention to, not being growing and not doing all these things, or we can have a life that is really coming together because we are actively pursuing new ideas, new things, and learning and growing. And so it's like kind of like that old thing, if you're not growing, you're dying. And and the same goes with the decluttering and all of these things, that if you're not doing something, it could very quickly just get kind of out of hand in your home. So it kind of, to me, it almost makes me think, there have been many times that I've had this really huge weight gain. And I remember many times thinking, oh my God, if I had just started working on it when it was only 20 pounds, and it's the same kind of thing. If it's decluttered, start now, because it'll just lighten up your life, and you can do it like you had said something a few minutes ago. It's like you can make all of these things happen, incrementally and working with you, and start now, because if you're in this path of accumulating more stuff, there's just going to be more stuff to work with later.
And more weight. My colleague Peter Walsh wrote that book, Does This Clutter Make My Butt Look Fat? And actually, there is a definite direct correlation between clutter and weight. So you are trying to lose weight, lose some clutter, and it's going to help you lose the weight.
Yeah, I know that. And, and it's amazing to me how much of what's happening to our physical body has so much to do with our mind and what we've got around us. And, it's, it just blows my mind so many times to see the correlation with all these different things.
Yeah, it's crazy. Well, we're interconnected. I mean, we're a microcosm of the macrocosm. So, everything affects everything else. And that's the whole thing. It's like, if I still think that the more you know how to let go with ease and joy, the more you're able to embrace change. Going through change means letting go of what was before, right? So if you can just let go of some stuff, I always say I'm sneaky like that. It's not really about your clutter. It's about your ability to let go and move forward. That's what it's really all about. That's all decluttering is about.
Yeah.
And if you want to lose weight, lose some clutter. You want to get the job, lose some clutter. Like, seriously, it's so weird that it's just all, again, the micro of the macro, because, it's all one, really. We're all one.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for all your sharing today. And like I said, I will be decluttering a few things that have been in the back of my mind. But because I talked to you, I'm going to make sure I keep a box that is actively being added to all the time. And I have a couple of places that I donate to, and they come to my house and they pick things up. So at least once or twice a month, they come and pick things up. And so I'm all the time, if it's like even a pair of socks just the other day, it's like, those socks, I don't need those socks, and I stuck them in the thing. So sometimes there's more things in there than others, but I really work on actively doing that. I need to be doing it a lot more effectively, because just real quick, one of our family friends passed away last year, like right after Thanksgiving, I think it was. And we went to her house, and after she had passed, and there was some things that she loved that we brought home, because it reminded us of her and everything. And so now I feel like we've got too much stuff again, because my adult daughter lives with me, and she wanted some of the things that she had. So there's like more stuff on the shelf, and there's more stuff over here. And there's a few times I thought, oh, why did we go? Why did we go and get that stuff? But it felt like it was honoring her in some way, but she don't know. So I don't really know how I got myself into that, but I will be decluttering a little bit here and there and making spaces for things.
Yeah. Well, you're doing one thing that I have all my clients do, which is set up a donation station in your house. And you're doing that. So give yourself a pat on the back for that. You should always have a box happening in your house. Typically the hall closet's a great place to put it, because we always find this crap in our house. It's like, where did this come from? Like, if I had a nickel for everybody, every time any client told me where'd this come from, I'd be millionaires at this point. But having a space where you're like, where did this, you throw it in the box, throw it in the donation box. So you're already right on your way, Vicki, of doing, everything that's needed to really have a clutter-free life. It's that Virgo coming on you. I love it.
Yes, yes. Well, thank you for reminding me of that, because I've done it for so long. I just think that's what everybody does. I don't, how we are. We do things all the time, and we just assume that that's everybody's life.
No.
Yeah. Yeah.
It would be great. It would be great if it was everybody's life. I try to bring that into all my clients.
Yeah. Well,
That's
cool.
step
I
one.
usually have more than one donation box sitting around. The one's in my bedroom closet.
Me too.
Is it?
One in the master closet, one in my hall closet.
Yeah.
I put on clothes and I'm like, I throw it in the donation bin.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I just
I
did that the other
yeah,
day. I pulled out a shirt that I thought, when is the last time I've wore this? I don't even remember. And I put it on. I thought, oh, that's why I haven't worn it. And it went in the box.
that's
Yeah.
exactly what you're supposed to be doing. You're like the ideal client, girl. You're the
Yeah, but
ideal person already trained and gone.
well, if you could see my clutter in my office, you wouldn't think I was so well trained. But for some reason, the office has a little exception to everything. I don't know why, but I'm working on that. That is my task. I promise you, when we talk the next time, when you are going to be live in the group, I will have gotten rid of some of this clutter in this office. One of my biggest things that clutters my office is papers, because I like things written down and not being digital. And then I end up having, this file folder and this file folder. And so it's a process. I'll work on it. So I'll
We
promise you.
and we can talk about that. I'll give you some tips next time. Next time.
Okay. Yeah. Well, thank you. Yeah. Save those for the group, right?
Yeah, everybody has the same problem. It's the only reason I became a paper flow specialist is because we all have paper challenges. No one
Yeah.
teaches what to do with this stuff. So yeah, we'll talk about that next week for sure.
All right. Yay. Well, thank you again so much for being here and sharing your story of all these amazing things that do not connect at all, but amazing things nonetheless. I love it. I love it. And I'm kind of envious of all those things that you've done. And thank you for just being here and sharing, because I just feel this connection with you from when we met in that group. And so I'm so grateful to know you and to be able to share you with the world.
Thank you. Yeah, we had an instant connection. So thank you so much.
Thank you. So I'm going to leave my listeners with this one thing. The best way to predict the future is create it. So what are you creating now? Bye.
Bye.